Hello, hello. Get over here, make it look better. All right, I should be looking okay, or this should be looking good. It's not a high quality stream, all right, guys. I'm not a streamer here, but I'm gonna get it going here. I'm gonna make sure it's going over here. Once it's looking good, we'll get going. Uh, let's see. Make sure my audio is working really quick. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Excellent. All right, we're rocking and rolling. I'm gonna wait a little bit to give some more people time to come in. That's it. That's all we're doing. I don't think there was anyone who was questioning whether or not I was gonna be wearing a suit right now. It was in the thumbnail. If it's in the thumbnail, it means I'm wearing one. Then, funny enough, this is actually the exact suit and tie that I would wear to my real interviews. Everything I'm wearing is the exactly what I would wear to all my real interviews. And I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that, like when I first started, some of my funny stories. When I first got started interviewing in the tech world, because it was very, very, very different than I expected. I see people rolling in. What's going on, everybody? Yes, this will be on YouTube afterwards. So if for whatever reason you got to leave, you can always pick back up another time. Hey, David. I'm looking forward to the masterclass too. This is going to be a long one. This is going to be the longest live stream I've ever done. We're going to be diving really, really, really in depth into all things interviews. And so it should be really fun. Hey, Well Jones Hate. Interesting name. I like it. Hey, DMG, what's going on? I see a lot of people commenting. Hey, Samantha. I'm just looking at my thing is over here. I'm talking to you, but I'm looking over here. It's just how it has to work. Kami, talk data with Jane. I'm guessing that's Jane. Good to see you too. Cynthia, let me see if I can pronounce this one. Padmapriya Ramesh. That's a cool name. Hey, from California. Very nice, very nice. That's early in California. It's like 6 a.m. or something like that. Thank you for being here. And around the world, I know it's like very, very, very different times. Thank you guys so much for joining. Listen, we're going to be getting into it really soon. I have a whole presentation. I actually made a presentation for you guys. It's not just going to be me talking. So, you know, I put an effort for this. It wasn't, you know, I'm not lazy. I'm not a lazy person typically. But when it comes to like YouTube live streaming, I usually just talk. It's just me talking. But for this, I thought it would be nice to have some visuals to actually be able to see what I'm talking about, like I do in my YouTube videos. And since this is a masterclass, it's not just me rambling and talking. I decided to actually go above and beyond on this one. So you're welcome. But I see a ton more people coming in from New York City, Venezuela, Florida, Ghana, India, LinkedIn. Hey, that's a place too. That's the Wild West over there. Wisconsin, I think. WI, is that Wisconsin? I think so. Pakistan, very nice. Very nice. Nigeria, thank you guys so much for joining. I really am going to try to make this as useful as I possibly can to you. And just make this, you know, something that you get a lot of value from. So I'm going to go ahead and oh, wait, one last one. Marson said, I graduated from high school. I'm aiming at skilling myself up for data science positions. Long road ahead of me. Yes, but you can do it. And I believe in you. That's awesome. I encourage younger people to start, you know, looking into that thing, into like the tech world and data science and data analytics if they have a passion for it. Hey, Classy's from South Carolina. I'm from South Carolina. I'm in Charleston right now. Well, not right now. I live in Charleston. Budapest, South Africa, Vietnam. Awesome. There's so many places all around the world. Thank you guys so much for joining. We have a really great, there's going to be a longer, let me just kind of tell you what's going to go on. We're going to actually talk about several different topics, not just it's all related to data analyst interviewing, but there's lots of different things that go into it. And so I'm going to talk about a lot of different things. Every single thing I think in here is very important. And I'll have some anecdotal stories from when I was first starting out or back when I was a hiring manager or on a hiring team. I'll give you some stories. People who did really well, people who didn't do really well, some of my interview stories of when I was interviewing, and just give you some hopefully really good insight. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Real quick, I may take this tie off at some point because I don't usually like wearing a tie. This is, if you came in a little later, this is what I actually would wear to my interviews. And I would try to look really nice. I would wear a tie. If they were like, hey, dress super casual, I would maybe just wear the sport coat and take off the tie. But it didn't feel right. Like my dad always told me to wear a suit and tie. And so I would wear like something nice to interviews. Even when I was interviewing for like, back in the day when I was interviewing to work at a frozen yogurt shop, I still looked really nice. I don't know, something my dad impressed upon me. But we'll talk about all that stuff throughout. So this is the Data Analytics Interviews Masterclass. This is just something I'm doing for you guys. The reason I actually am doing this is because I had several people reach out to me in the past week through the Analyst Builder Discord and through my Alex the Analyst Discord and on LinkedIn. All people, there's probably like 20 or 30 people who are saying, hey, I'm getting my first interview. I'm really nervous. I don't know, what to expect. I don't know what I should be prepping for. And so, of course, I messaged them all back. But there were a lot of people because this is a big hiring time going into the summer. So I was like, I want to give this to everybody so I can give, kind of have a single place where I can just send people and say, hey, watch this video. This will tell you everything you need to know about interviewing. It should be super, super helpful. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Real quick, if you don't know who I am, my name is Alex Freeberg, better known as Alex the Analyst on YouTube. This is my YouTube channel. Welcome. I'm not streaming this anywhere else. I'm just streaming this to YouTube. But thank you guys for joining. Really appreciate it. I am the founder of Analyst Builder. We can prepare for technical interviews. I also do consulting with tech startups and tech companies. And so that's Alex Analytics. I specialize mostly in SQL, Python, cloud applications, Azure, and AWS are the ones I primarily work in and I consult with a lot. And then that's just me on the right-hand side. But again, best known for my YouTube channel. Now, we're going to dive into a ton of stuff. So I'm going to start just really high level about the different types of interviews that you're going to get. Now, I'm going to take you back real quick. I'm going to take you back to, 2017. So over 7 years ago, I was getting my first real interviews for data analytics. I didn't know much. I was just starting out. I had really only learned SQL and a bit of Excel. That's essentially all I knew at that time. And I put it on LinkedIn that I was looking for jobs, and I started reaching out to recruiters. Recruiters were reaching out to me, and all of these interviews I had at some point throughout my journey over the past 7 years. I've had all these different types of interviews. We're going to go into each one of them, kind of talk about what to expect or what kind of questions they're going to ask, etc. But I've told this story before, so some of you guys might have heard this. This is not a new story that I've told, but I'll tell it anyways because some people might not have heard it. I had gotten one of my first screening calls by this recruiter. It was a really interesting job. It was healthcare analytics, which I have a background in healthcare. So I was like, this is a great fit. And they wanted to bring me in for their first interview. And during the screening call, he was like, hey, we're at this it's not like a high rise. It was like, just a building workplace, like a co-building workplace where it was like 10 stories tall. And at the bottom, there were some shops and stores. And then each company would kind of rent out a floor or something like that. And so I had never seen this building in Dallas before, which is where I was living. And this recruiter wanted to meet me for the interview. Now, I remember this very, very, very distinctly because I was like, well, this is sketchy. I was like, because I've never met this person. I don't know what this guy even looks like. And he wants to meet me in person. I was like, am I going to get mugged? Like, could he just kill me and rob me? I don't know. That's genuinely was my thought process. And so what I did was I coordinated with my wife. I said, hey, here's the exact location I'm supposed to be going. And I looked it up and Googled it beforehand. It was an actual building. I was like, my interview is from, I think it was 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's like, if I don't call you by 10:15, call the police. Something went wrong. I was mugged. It's that I was a genuine fear of mine. And so I went to the interview. It went really well. The recruiter was a real person who didn't want to kill me. And I ended up getting that job. But I went through a lot of these different types of interviews during that specific job. And then I'll talk to you guys later in a little bit about a different job that I got. And there were several of these as well. And so there's different types of interviews. There's different levels of interviews. So we're going to talk about that for a little while. And yeah, we're going to get into it. Give me just a second while I take a sip of water. All right. Enough about my almost getting killed by a recruiter story. I didn't actually. He actually, I told this story in a video. I told that story in a live stream or a different video one time, and he reached out to me, the guy who interviewed me. I had said the wrong name. I'm blanking on the name again, but he reached out to me and we talked, and we actually jumped on a call and just chatted it up for a little bit, which was really funny. But he was like, no, I wasn't going to kill you. I was like, that's great. All right, guys, let's take a look at the screening call and interview. Now, some of you, this may be very obvious because maybe you've been in the tech world or you watched a lot of my videos before, so this seems obvious. But let me tell you something. I remember that I knew absolutely nothing about any of these different types of interviews. The healthcare world where I came from, I had never done a screening call before. I didn't even know what that was. So everything I'm going to talk to you about are things that I was very new to when I first started. I didn't understand screening calls, recruiting calls, panel interviews, any of that stuff. And so if you're watching this and you've already gone through these things, you already know what they are. This might be a little bit of a refresher on some of these things, but we're going to talk about so many things. I just don't want you to, I am purposely making it very beginner friendly, because that's what I needed when I was first starting out. So let's take a look at screening call / the screening interview. Now, basically what this is this is the first time they're reaching out to you. Now, this actually could be the hiring manager doing the screening call. It's not as common though as getting something like a recruiting company to reach out to you. Most companies don't do all of their screening themselves. It's very time consuming. And so they offload that to some third-party company. For example, when I was a hiring manager, we worked with a recruiting company. So we used Accenture. Accenture is also a consulting type of company, but they would do all of the acquisition for us. So I would tell, Accenture, hey, Accenture, here's what I'm looking for. I need someone with this experience, this experience, this experience. Those are needs. Then here's some wants. I want someone who, these are like, if they have this as a bonus, if they have this skill and this skill or this. And so they would then go and they would screen 50 people. They'd call 50 different people. They'd get 3 or 4 people to actually send to me that they think is a really good fit. And then, so I wouldn't have to do any of these screening calls. So typically, if you're getting a screening call, it's not always going to be the actual company themselves. This happened a lot. It was just like a girl, her name was Stacy, and Stacy would call and she's like, hey, I'm Stacy. I work with ABC Recruiting on behalf of this company. So on behalf of, Microsoft company. And so I'm just going to get a little screening call, and then we're going to get to know each other. I'm going to pass along this information to the hiring manager. And so they're doing these screenings so that the hiring manager doesn't waste their time talking to 50 people, and only 5 of them are actually interesting. And so what are they going to ask? What are they going to talk about in this just initial screening interview? First thing they're going to do is they just want to know more about you. That is I would say the primary thing. They're screening to see if you're a good fit. So they're going to ask you about your work history. They're going to ask you about their experience. And usually they have in front of them, they have a sheet or on their screen or whatever, saying, okay, this company really needs someone who has Azure experience, SQL experience, and Python. That's what they use day in, day out. And they don't really want to have to teach someone all of this because it'd take months to teach them this. They want someone with at least a little bit of experience. So they're going to ask you about that. Hey, do you have any experience in Azure? And you're going to say, oh, yes, I've built projects in Azure. I've done this and that. And they're going to be like, that's great. What about SQL? What about Excel? What about Python? And they'll ask you those questions usually pretty directly. And so, you just be honest with them and you say, here's where I really shine. I'm really great at SQL and Python. I have a little bit of Azure experience or whatever, is actually true. Next thing they're going to do is they are going to talk to you about the job. Now, most people, especially in this job market, don't really think of this as a two-way street, but even the screening call is very much a two-way street in terms of you have to like the job and they have to like you. If they start talking about the job and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're fully in office from 9 to 5, and most people go out for happy hour afterwards every single day, and we don't do lunch breaks. And so just from that initial screening, you're like, yeah, that doesn't sound good to me. I'm not feeling that. And if you have experience or you're already in a job, then you may be like, okay, I'm not going to even keep going with this interview. But if it sounds good, you're like, oh, it's 8 to 4. We have 21 vacation days per year. The salary is around 80,000 to 100,000. That's their range. Then these are all good signs and you keep going with it. But initially, they're usually not going to tell you something like a salary. Usually recruiters play that pretty close to the chest. Even if you ask, you can say, hey, what's the range? And they'll say, well, I'll ask the hiring manager or something. Salary is always a really tough one. And it's depending on the state as well, or the country that you're living in. Sometimes they'll give it to you, sometimes they won't. But they're going to ask you what your salary expectations are, almost 100%. They want to know, is this guy expecting, 150,000 and our budget's like 80? And they're just going to be like, okay, or, if you're not willing to come down, this won't be a good fit. So that's really, really common to do. Now, the next thing to know about screening interviews is that these people are actually really important. And not always, but usually the person who's doing the screening call, the recruiter or whoever that is going to talk directly to the hiring manager. And sometimes they have a relationship. Because when I was a hiring manager, or even back when I was on a hiring team, we used to know our recruiter quite well. And I was very friendly with them. And so, if they came in and they were like, yeah, and this would happen very often. So like, just take this with a grain of salt. This was my experience. But the recruiter would come in and they'd say, hey, we have 4 people lined up, but this guy I'm really excited about. He's everything you're looking for, great personality, really seemed to be interested in the job. And so that person I would really hone in on and be like, okay, I'm really interested in this person. I wouldn't make any decision if I'd interviewed the other 3 until I got to that 4th person, because the recruiter really knows what we want. They knew what we were looking for, and they gave a good recommendation. So don't take this call lightly. Really try to do well in this interview, make a really good impression. Again, it's usually just a phone call. You're not getting on like a Zoom call with somebody, but just some extra information. So be confident, stay positive. And if it's not a good fit, you can always just tell them that. And I've done that a lot, especially as I got further along in my career. When people would call me just through, LinkedIn or wherever they got my information, they'd say, hey, are you looking for a job? And they're like, it pays this and it's in this location. I was like, no, I'm not looking to relocate. And they're like, okay, thanks. And so that's their job. A lot of these screening interviews are, you're one of many. And so you just have to understand that you can also say no. But if you're really interested in the job, really try to make a good impression. Be excited about the job, be confident, speak confidently to your skills and what you can do. And that will go a long, long way. One thing to note, and this is because later on we're going to talk quite a bit about this, is that there's usually no technical questions in this screening interview. So, if you've watched other videos that I've made where I talk about the technical portion of the interview, which is really important, and we'll get to that in this during this live stream, there usually is not a technical portion. They're going to ask generalizations. What do you know about SQL? What is your skill level in SQL? Most of the times, these recruiters are not super technical. So they're not like, they're not experts in SQL themselves. They're experts in recruiting. And so they just know that SQL is a skill that they're looking for. And so if you rate yourself, a 3 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5 in SQL, that's going to be usually enough information. And they may even go as far as to ask something like, how have you used SQL before? They may not fully may not fully understand it, but they're just going to write down what you write are kind of the highlights of what you're saying, and they'll pass that along to the hiring manager. Now, we're going to go to the next one, which is in-person interviews. Now, I'm going to scroll to the next one real quick. This is in-person interviews. What do they want to see? And then what will they ask? So those are two different things that we're going to take a look at. So just to give you a little bit of information about me, I was on a hiring team for over 2 years. So this was back when I was just a regular data analyst. I was on a hiring team with my manager. It was my manager, me, and then one other program manager at our company. So we had 3 people in this interview, and we would interview for different positions, or we would be the ones interviewing other people for these positions. Then after that, I became a hiring manager, and then it was me. I did single interview. I didn't do panel style, which is what I was just referencing. And so during these interviews, I was the one giving the technical interviews. So I was the one giving them SQL or Python, or testing them on their knowledge of Azure or Power BI or whatever it was, because I was kind of our more technical person on our team. And so I gave those technical interviews. My boss usually asked the general questions, and then the other program manager would ask some of the general technical questions, which we'll get into as well. So what do they want to see, whether it's a single person or whether it's a panel of people, which again, we'll discuss what the difference is. So the first thing they're going to want to ask about is just to tell you about yourself, tell you about your experience, tell you about what industry you've worked in, and how that's relevant to the position that you're applying for. Now, when you're out there applying in the real world, it gets, how do I say this? You apply for a lot of jobs. Some that are very, very close to what you're looking for, and some that aren't super close. You're going to apply for jobs that, somewhat meet your expectations or your wants in a position. So it may not be just a data analyst job. It could be a data collection specialist, or it could be a data visualization specialist, or a BI developer, or various roles that are close to data analytics that you think you'd be a good fit for. So they want to hear about these things, and they're going to kind of vet you for your closeness to the role, right? And that's really important. The other thing, and this piece honestly is very important, and I'm gonna tell you kind of an anecdote of a story back before, but it's having a good personality and a positive attitude. Back when I was on a hiring team, we were hiring for a business analyst. So we had me, I was the data analyst. We had one other data analyst, but we were doing a lot of communication with all these stakeholders. And I was supposed to be the more technical person on the team, but I was spending a lot of my time gathering requirements and translating it for business purposes. And I was splitting my time almost between like a business analyst and a data analyst, doing more technical work, but also more stakeholder work. We're on a business analyst for this position. And so I was on the hiring team for that, and we started, interviewing people, and we probably interviewed about 5 people once we started doing interviews, which was like 2 weeks after we started the job, or we posted the job, excuse me. And so we would go into these interviews, and I remember specifically there were 2 people that were the closest fit by far. One of them just didn't have experience at all, and no healthcare experience, really didn't know much about the company, so they were out. But it came down to these final 2 people, and both of them were actually quite similar in terms of skill, pretty similar. The only difference was that one person had more experience. They had 2 years of experience as a business analyst. The other one had, or was just out of college. He had a degree in like business. I can't remember what the exact degree was. It was like business administration or something like that. But he had some technical skills, but they were not as good as the girl. So it was a girl and it was a guy. And the girl's personality was just really it was lackluster. It was just, I was like talking to somebody, but I wasn't really getting much back. And so I'm usually quite a friendly person. And so I was smiling and I was, being, really cordial. But she was just like answering the question very like this. Yes. Yeah. And I was like, okay, you looks like you have a lot of really relevant experience. And she would talk to it, but it wasn't like, it wasn't even like she was nervous. That was just her personality. The other guy, we got along with very well. We had a panel, so we were getting along with him really well. He had a little less experience, but he talked a lot about how excited he was about this position, how he could tell that we were really a good company to work for, and that we see, because we talked, we were like, you would be working directly with us. He's like, you guys seem like really good people. I'd love to work with you guys, and he showed some excitement and positive attitude, and we ended up hiring him. One of the main reasons is we got off of the initial call was a call, but then he came in person for the next interview, or for that final interview. And after that final interview, I went back with Sabrina, who was my manager, and I was like, Sabrina, he has less experience, but that's the guy I want to work with. Like, the other person just seems like it won't be like we have a team. It's like a little group of people, and if you don't vibe with them, if you don't get along with them, it is harder to want to hire them. It really is. And I'm just being super honest. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me over the years being like, hey, I'm really introverted. I really struggle with talking to people. I have autism, or I have Asperger's, or I have this. And it makes me really nervous around people. How do I overcome this? And so I'm just going to talk just a really small amount about this, just to highlight it. Those are completely real and valid things to consider, because some people don't do super well in interviews. They don't do super well in social settings. And that is very real. One of the things I would say is just be honest. I've worked with people who have those things going on, and we worked great with them. And usually they would just tell us, they're like, hey, I'm a little shy because I have Asperger's, but I'm a really hard worker. I would like this team. And as I get to know you, I'll get more comfortable. It'll be easier for me to talk to you. And that usually does not bother most people. They're like, oh, okay, great. So I would just not try to force it and push through it, because that can sometimes make things worse. It's just to be yourself, be honest, and, put your best foot forward that you possibly can, and try to, still be nice and still be cordial. Maybe you aren't going to be laughing it up in the interview, but, just try your best. What else do they want to see? The next thing is someone who's interested in the work and is motivated to learn. Now, not every person, like you may not know every skill that they have on their job description. And that's totally normal. In fact, it's not a good thing if you do know everything on the job description. For example, if the job called for SQL, Python, and Excel, that's it. And I knew SQL, Python, Excel, and I've been using it for 7 years. There's nowhere to go if I got that position. There's no upward trajectory in that role. I already know those things. And so then if they don't bring on other software, bring on other skills within that job, I don't learn anything, and I can't rise. I can't get promotions. I probably won't be able to improve my abilities over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years that I'm there. And so if they have those skills, and then like, we're also looking for Azure, and we're looking for Databricks, and we're looking at someone who knows all scripts, database systems for healthcare. These are things that you may not have heard of, but you can research them. And here's what they're really looking for. And I'm going to give you a little insight here. There would be times where somebody would come in and they're like, I don't know Epic healthcare systems. And that's what we worked with a lot. Allscripts, Epic, some of these other big popular EHR systems that companies would use. And we collect data from all of them and all these healthcare providers. So in that job, we'd say, it's helpful if you know Epic healthcare systems. There would be times where someone would come in and they're like, I've never worked with Epic, but I was looking into them because I saw it on the job description. And Epic seems pretty similar to this EHR, which I'm really familiar with. That showed a lot of initiative, right? That shows me they don't know what this is, but they already researched it. They already came prepared to answer the question of, have you used Epic healthcare, EHR systems before? So that is going to happen with you. And in fact, in almost every job I ever got, there were things on the job description I didn't know. But and I didn't know that I needed to do this, but now I'm telling you, you really should do this, is that you should research whatever that tool is, whatever that skill is that they're looking for, and you should come prepared with some type of answer. So if on all you know is SQL, Excel, Tableau, and they have other tools on there, let's just say Databricks, for example, they have a lot of data, they need to process it in Databricks. Then you need to come in and you say, hey, look, I haven't used Databricks before, but I was researching Databricks. It looks like I just need to upskill a little bit in PySpark. I think I can handle that, or Spark SQL. But I think I got that, and I think I'll be able to learn it really quickly. And actually, I'm really excited to learn that because in my previous role, we weren't working at as much data, and that gets me really excited to work with. And so that is a really good way to not come in being like, what is Databricks? Because that doesn't look good. They're like, we need someone who at least knows what Databricks is. It's maybe not a need, but it's like if they know Databricks already, it's really nice. But you're coming in and you're showing initiative. So somebody who comes in and is showing initiative, they're showing interest in the role, is really good. One other thing, and this is something that I think is just a bonus. You don't have to do this, but I recommend it, which is before you go in for that first interview is to research the company. And you can tell a lot about the company from their website, from reviews on Glassdoor about the company. And what I used to do is I used to go on to like their website and be like, okay, what does this company actually do? What kind of data do they work with? Are they in finance? Are they in healthcare? I mostly did healthcare, but what industry are they working with? What are they doing with their data? Are they selling the data? Are they transforming and giving the data back to hospitals? Are they working with pharmaceutical companies, distribution companies? What are they doing? And so when you get in there and you start asking, or you start answering these questions, you can ask them questions back. And I would recommend even not waiting till the end to ask these. They want to see some curiosity. They want to see some excitement, like I was saying. And so if you say, hey, how do you know SQL? You talk about how you know SQL, and you're like, how do you guys use SQL in your system? Because it seems like you guys are using this kind of data. Are you guys, automating that process and pulling the data in and putting it in SQL? Or are you transforming it outside of SQL and putting it into SQL? These are questions that they would be really impressed by. Like, I know I would have been impressed by that many years ago if someone had asked me those types of questions. So I tried to, again, go above and beyond, and I think you guys should as well. Lastly, they want to see that it's not just about the money. Funny enough, I've only ever had this one time, but there was somebody who came in and they asked multiple times about salary in one interview. Like, the first thing they asked was, hey, what's the salary? And then we told them. And then they were like, later on during like the middle of the interview, they were like, are you guys open to negotiating on the salary? And we were like, oh, we might be able to open. And then towards the end of it, they were like, now what's the percentage that you might be able to increase the salary? Not a good look. Money is, of course, you're getting hired to do a job. It's important, but you shouldn't be asking about it a lot, because even though you may be really only there for the money, and that's totally fine, that's not what the interviewer wants to see. Because as soon as you become not satisfied with the money, they know you're going to leave, right? So it's not classy to do that. That's just my take. All right, let's go to the next one. All right. There are usually two different types of questions that they're going to ask you. And this is the in-person interview, not the screening interview. During the in-person interview, they are typically going to ask you general questions and general technical questions, not a technical test or something like that, which we'll get into in just a little bit. Actually, I think it might be next, but general technical interview questions. So with the general questions, these are questions you can get in almost any interview. I don't care if you're interviewing for a CEO position, a data analyst position, or a McDonald's drive-through position. You will see these job questions everywhere. They'll ask you to tell you about yourself. What's your greatest weakness? What makes you a good fit for this position? Those are just general questions that you're going to get in every single interview. Now, the reason I have these 3 specific ones up here, even though there's a ton more that you'll get asked, these are 3 of the most common questions. And I actually do want to just highlight very quickly how I would answer each of these questions. And then we'll go down to the general technical questions, and I'll tell you how to answer those as well. And then after that, I believe the next one, don't get mad at me if it's not true, but I believe in the very next one, we'll go into the technical portion where they're actually asking you technical questions. And that was, again, what I did for years. So I was the one who created the questions. I would deliver the questions. I would help them work through the questions. And I was the one who told my team, this person's technical enough for us or not. So that was my role. And so when we get there, I have some good stories, some really good stories about people who just did not do well or underperformed is what I'll say on some technical interviews. So let's look at this first one. The first one is tell me about yourself. Now, I have, again, all of these questions, every question that you're looking at, I have heard people answer, and I've also answered myself. So these ones are just like really common. And then down the technical are ones that I used to ask a lot of people, and I've been asked this a few times in interviews as well. So let's look at the general questions. It says, tell me about yourself. This is not a time to tell them your life story, as much as you may want to. I was born in Molasses, Michigan, and my dad was a farmer. My mom was a teacher. I grew up in rural Michigan, and this is not the time. Really what they want to know is a highlight of who you are as an employee, some of your experiences, maybe where you even go as far back as college, depending on if you're right out of college, you can talk about that and some experience. And then maybe at the end, you say something a little bit personal. And I'm a big family guy, and so I always talked about my family at the end. I would say, I'm a data analyst at a healthcare analytics company. I work with this kind of data. I've worked with these systems. I have about 2 years experience. And then at the end, I might add something like, and I have a family, I have 2 kids, 1 on the way, and they're just the best, and they are, my favorite thing in the world. And so that might be kind of a talking point where then they can be like, oh, that's so wonderful. How old are your kids? And so they can then have follow-up questions from that. And so don't go super long-winded on this one. Keep it under like 60 seconds. Keep it under a minute. If you start getting into like your high school teachers or if you can swim or not, you've lost your way. The next one is, what is your greatest weakness? I wanted to add this one. And the opposite side is, what is your greatest strength? But this question you will see in almost every single interview. And usually people don't answer it well. And it really makes me laugh sometimes. Like, I've heard some really bad answers to this because they'll give a little bit too honest of answers, or they'll give such, how do I say this politically correct? They'll give answers that are just ridiculous. They're like, my greatest weakness is just being too perfect. I just have such a keen eye for detail. I think that's my biggest weakness. And I'm like, okay, John, your biggest weakness is being perfect at everything. It rubs people the wrong way. Whether it should or shouldn't, I've seen it in interviews, and even like when I was on the hiring team, we would get answers like that. No joke. We would have people answer it exactly like that, or being like, I'm just too punctual. And, some people don't like that. They think, it's okay to be 5 minutes late. I don't. And I start right on time. That is my weakness. My weakness is I stick too much to the schedule. And I'm like, okay, all right, we get it. So that is a very real thing. And so how you should answer this, and I'm going to give you I'm going to give you like an example that I used to use all the time. And whether or not this is perfect, I always got a good response from it. And I've told this to other people, and they've also said, hey, it's a pretty good answer. It's a tough answer. It's a tough question to answer. Because one, you have to talk about something negative about yourself, which isn't a good thing, but it is interesting how people answer, and it does give you some insight. So I used to say something along the lines of this. I used to say, well, I'm really working on my time management. That's something that I'm working on right now. I think that's probably my biggest weakness. Because typically what happens is I get into a task and, I'm supposed to, finish this up by the end of the day. And then my time management, I have a meeting and then I have this. And so what typically happens is I'll start working on it. And then I have to go to the meeting, I have to come back and I have to kind of figure out where I'm going. And then by the end of the day, sometimes I need, to stay an extra like 30 minutes to get it done or something like that. And so that's a time management issue. And I'm really working on that, trying to manage my time a little better and saying no to some meetings that I don't need to be in. That's probably the one thing that is my biggest weakness. But again, I'm working on it. As I was maybe ramble a little bit too much there, but that is usually the one I would use because time management is something that everyone can understand. It's difficult in the real world to get everything done on time. That's very relatable. But the second thing, and I always want people to talk about this, is talk about how you're trying to improve it. Don't be like, my biggest weakness is probably drinking on the job. Yeah, and I don't plan on stopping. It's just like, it's such an obviously bad answer. Or, you say like, that's a little bit too honest, right? A little bit too honest. But you can also say something that's just relatable. Things like time management, working with other people, how to, maybe meetings aren't your thing. Like I really struggle with, one of my biggest weaknesses is that I don't like a ton of meetings. And so, I have to really work hard to balance going to meetings and getting my actual work done. So there's so many answers that you can do, but always talk about how you're improving it. Because if you're like time management, I suck at time management. I never get things on in time. That's just who I am as a person. It's just like it comes off really bad. So you want to show at least some improvement in that area. I just think that comes off really well. And don't be too honest. Don't be too honest. Write these answers down, know you're going to get asked them, and then answer them really well in the interview. Don't go into this one not knowing what you're doing. The next one is what makes you a good fit for this position. Now, they're going to be interviewing multiple people. You almost for any role you're applying for, you will not be the only person that they're going to be interviewing for it. Real quick, let me do a time check. You are kidding me. It's 9:42. I've only gone through like 4 slides. I'm talking way too much. Oh, geez, you guys should have shown me. You guys should have told me. This is not good. I have way too much to get through. So let me try to go a little bit faster. But what makes you a good fit for this position? I would be just talking about your skills, your personality, and your team fit. So if those things are true, of course, like if you don't match any of the skills, you don't think they're good people, and the team sounds terrible, don't say that. But if everything looks good, be like, I think just based off everything that you're telling me about this position, about the team, I feel like I'd be a really good fit culturally for this team, personality-wise for this team, as well as my skills really seem to align with what you're looking for. And so I'm really excited about the position. I'm excited to hear back from you guys. It would be an honor to work with you. Even something as simple as that sounds really and looks really good. All right. That's the general questions. Now, again, those are questions you'll get at any interview, almost any single interview. You might be asked those exact questions, even in the screening call, maybe, but you'll get those in a in-person interview. The next portion is the general technical interviews. This is a portion of the interview that can sometimes come after the technical interview, and that's what we're looking at next. The technical interview is where you're actually going to be doing something hands-on. Whereas the general technical, which is down here, is more theoretical, more process-based, something that you can talk about and isn't an exact answer. It's like, here's what I've experienced, here's what I've done. So let's take a look at these questions. The first one is, do you know what data cleaning is? How have you done it before? How do you determine what tool to use for a task? And what do you know about SQL? These are very common questions that I've been asked personally many times in interviews, and that I used to ask in the interviews as well when I was on this hiring team and a hiring manager. And so all of those things are very, very real questions that you should be getting ready for and you should be preparing for. So talking about like, do you know what data cleaning is? Your answer should be, yes, I know what data cleaning is. And you should kind of expand on that. Data cleaning is where you're transforming data for a purpose. You know, the data comes in this format, but in order for us to use it for a product or a report or visualization, we need to transform it into this. And so that can look very different. And so you can talk about how you've done it before, if you've done it before. And if you've done any of my projects, you've done data cleaning before. I have data cleaning projects. So if you've gone in there and you've normalized data that was dirty, that's data cleaning. If you are splitting out data into columns, that's data cleaning. If you are, you know, I'm trying to think of other things, taking cleaning data that has incorrect punctuation or something like that, that's data cleaning. So you can talk about how you've done that. And you don't have to say I did it in a project, just say, here's how I've done it. And that's, you know, I've done it in SQL, done it in Excel, done it in Python, Pandas, or whatever tool. It could be Tableau even. Next one is, how do you determine what tool to use for a task? Now, this is a good one because this one's going to show a little bit more insight. I've asked this question before, and some people are just like, well, you know, I just look at, you know, what we need to do with it, and I determine what tool we use. And that's a bad answer. You want someone to go a little bit in depth. The depth in which they answer these types of questions gives you really good insight into if they actually know what they're talking about or not. So how do you determine what tool you use for a task? Well, I would say you need to look at the data first. And you say, okay, how much data are we pulling in? Where is this data coming from? And what are we going to be doing with this data? Is it just going to sit in a CSV file? We'll transform it, put it back into a CSV file, put it in an FTP or an SFTP? Or do we need to put it into a database? Is it, you know, structured data? Is it unstructured data? Are we going to be creating visualizations for this? Are we creating reports for this? So these are all things that I need to consider before I know what tool to use. And then depending on, you know, what we're doing with it, I can choose either a cloud platform, I can choose a programming language, I could choose a database that fits that need. And so even with just that, that's a pretty simple, maybe not simple, but it's not specific, just a generalized answer. That will really impress a lot of people in an interview, because most of the answers they're going to get is not going to be like that. So that's one thing to consider. Next thing is, what do you know about SQL? And again, the reason I asked this, or I put this one in here, is because SQL is one of the most popular tools and skills to know for data positions, just in general. Data engineers, database developers, data scientists, data analysts, business analysts, they need to know SQL. They want to gauge your skill level. And so you're going to want to talk about what you know within SQL and how you've used it. You can say, oh, well, you know, at my current company, we create stored procedures that do this, this, and this. You know, I'll get in there and if we're having an issue with our pipeline, I'll get in there and debug it and do some data quality checking. You know, I'll query data to do some exploratory data analysis on a new data set. We also use it for our data cleaning, and, you know, you can go on and on. And so those are all things that you can talk about. So that's for the in-person interviews. All right, we're going to be talking about SQL interviews. Now, these are the actual technical interviews. Now, really quickly, just before we go into anything, I just want to let you guys know that within Analyst Builder, and this is just a plug for myself, so, you know, take it or leave it. But in the description, you can come in here and you can do the MySQL interview crash course. That's going to go through all of these technical questions that you're going to get asked in technical interviews that we're going to cover in just a second. And it's going to go over some of those general technical interviews as well. Data cleaning, data processes, all of those things are the general technical, but you go through like 15 or 20 of those. And so this course is the SQL one. This is our Python interview crash course. If I'm being honest though, and I'm going to go back to this real quick. If I'm being honest, most companies are going to interview in SQL. Most companies do, because it's standardized. And actually, I think we talk about it in one of these slides. So the MySQL interview crash course is literally everything you need to know for the technical portion of the interview. Now, again, there's 50% off in the description. If you are curious of that, or if you want to take advantage of that, you can. It's available to you. Now let's go back to it. That was just a little plug for myself because I worked really hard on that. I think it's an amazing resource. And there's free stuff on my YouTube channel too for SQL interviewing. So go ahead and check those out as well. Let's talk about the 3 parts or the 3 different potential parts of SQL interviewing. The first one is whiteboarding. Now, this is going to be the most common type of technical interview that you'll get. Now, where does the technical interview come into play? So let's say you go through the screening call, it looks really good. You get into that in-person interview. You may get the technical interview within this very first in-person interview, or whether it's over Zoom or whatever. You could get that in this one, or it could be a completely separate interview. I've had it done both ways. But the whiteboard, and I wrote SQL because, again, it's usually SQL. But sometimes it's Python, because I have had Python technical interviews as well. This is where you're going to actually write out code. They're going to, the hiring manager, the technical person on the panel of interviews, they are going to hand to you a database, or they're going to give you 2 tables, or they're going to give you some type of schema. And they're going to say, okay, here's what I want to know. I want to know how you can combine these 2 tables and aggregate it on this column. That's it. Why are they asking you to do this? They want to make sure you actually know it. And so you can see over here on the right-hand side, this is just Silicon Valley. It's a great, highly recommend that show. But sometimes they'll actually have you write on an actual whiteboard. That's why it's called whiteboarding. Nowadays, they could have it, you do it on pencil, or there are websites that do that service where they pay for it and you get asked a question, right? So sometimes it's on an actual computer now. But it used to be where you just actually write it out. And so they give this to you, and they're going to ask you to solve something, and you need to write it out. Now, when you're writing it out, here's what I do, and here's what I recommend. I recommend just talking them through your thought process. You say, okay, so it sounds like the first thing I need to do is join these 2 tables. We'll do an inner join for that. It looks like these columns are named the same. I don't know this data, but I'm assuming those are the same. So we'll join it on that. So now that we have the data joined, now let's aggregate this data. And so we need to group by, and we'll group by this column. And now we can do our aggregate function. We need the group by in order to do that. We'll perform our aggregate function, and now we have the average of that column. And there you go. And so just as simple as that, if you walk through them out loud, your thought process, they're really going to like that. But also getting the right answer is very helpful. So actually knowing what you're doing is very, very helpful. And so that's what they're going to do. Here in the example down here is one that is very, very common. They're going to give you some schema. They're going to say, you have 2 tables, write a query that will return the average salary from table A and the employee names from table B. We only want employees who have been with the company for 5 or more years. So there's some joining, there's some filtering, and they are doing this to make sure you know SQL. Now I'm going to give you a quick story, because this one was, it was tough to watch, it was tough to administer, and when I think back to it, it hurts. It hurts me on the inside. So we were doing interviews for a data analyst position on our team. We were interviewing, we got about 4 people in to the final, not the final, this is the initial in-person interviews. And for every single one, I was the person who administered the technical interview. So something very similar to this. And I asked them all the exact same thing. So it was unbiased, all the same. And there was this one person that came in, looked very promising. Good education, good experience, talked really well, good personality. And they were talking, I said, what do you know about SQL? And so they were like, oh, I've been using SQL for 3 years. I really know how to use it. I can do joins and subqueries and, store procedure and all this stuff. I'm like, excellent. So this should be easy for you. I didn't say that, but like in my head, I'm like, okay, here you go. Let's take this little test. And it was not hard. It was about as difficult as this. It had a join in it and an aggregation and maybe a filter. Again, for the position we were hiring for, this should be a no-brainer. And so they started taking it and they started having trouble with it. And I was like, you can use any type of SQL. You use MySQL, PostgreSQL, Microsoft SQL Server, whichever one you're comfortable with. I know the syntax, so don't worry about it. Just walk me through your thought process. because you could tell they were a little flustered. So I was trying to help them out, right? I'm like, oh, don't worry about, how you write it. Just walk me through your thought process and that'll be good. So they start writing and they don't know how to do any of it. And I guarantee you, if you've used SQL for 3 years, you know how to do these things, 100%. So as they were writing, they're like, I'm getting stuck. I'm getting stuck on this join. I'm forgetting how to do it. I was like, oh, okay. Well, just walk me through what you're thinking. Like, how do you join two tables? And they couldn't think of it. I was like, they have to have a common column that you can join on. So I'm walking them through it at this point, and it's real awkward because there's two other panelists and they're just sitting, my boss and another program manager. And I'm walking them through and I'm like, what about the group, grouping the data and aggregating? Show me how to do that. And they couldn't do it. And so they obviously lied pretty hard about their SQL experience. And it was tough. It was really tough to watch. So this is not one that you want to fail. And this is one that you'll get quite a bit. Now, you're going to get asked different questions based off different levels. So this isn't always going to be just, I won't even say that's super easy. There are people who won't even try to do joins in their technical interviews. They'll just do, select this data and filter where it's greater than $10 million in revenue. Something really simple, just a filter. But at every level, you'll get different types of questions. So at the entry level, which is like 0 to 1, maybe even 2 years at some places, they're going to ask simple stuff like basic aggregations, filterings, maybe a join, right? Usually pretty simple. For mid-level, it's going to get a little bit more difficult. They want to know if you can do maybe even subqueries. They'll definitely ask you about joins. And they could even go into like what a CTE is, or if you've used stored procedures or something like that, maybe. But it gets a little bit more difficult. It's not going to be as super straightforward. Again, they want to challenge you just to gauge your level. Then at the senior level, they're going to ask you typically a little bit harder questions. Now, I interviewed for a lot of senior positions before I got promoted to a manager. And in these senior interviews, I had several technical interviews, and most of them comprised of getting a database schema with 10 tables in it, and you can infer just what the data was based off the table. And so they gave me some prompt, and it was more advanced. There was more structured querying that I needed to do, which wasn't, again, I'd been using SQL really consistently. I was very good at SQL. So it wasn't crazy difficult, but it was 10 times more difficult than an entry level, because that's just basic filtering. And so as you get higher, you'll need to know things like, CTEs, subqueries, stored procedures, all these different things, and how they actually work. Like, they may want you to walk through why you need to use a CTE and why you might use that over something like a window, not a window function, a temporary table or something like that. And so then you need to work through the logic, and it gets quite a bit more advanced. These are, and we actually talked a little bit about this, but these are some of the general database / SQL questions that you might be getting asked. These are, again, more about processes than they are about getting a specific answer. And so there's no coding, you're just talking them through your process, but that can be really tricky for a lot of people. And most people, not most, but some people don't really understand what they're actually doing sometimes. Like they've done data cleaning before, but maybe they don't understand why they have to do it, or they don't understand, where the data is coming from, or the whole process. So sometimes they're going to ask you more in depth about, walk me through data collection process. How do you collect your data? How do you get your data? How do you clean it? How have you used SQL in the past? How do you clean dirty data? So back to that cleaning data again. So these are general questions that they just want you to verbally respond to. And again, you can get asked a wide variety of questions here, but those are some pretty common ones. The next one will be some type of take-home assignment. Now, I never gave these myself because I didn't believe in them. I used to get these a lot when I was in the first couple of years I was a data analyst. I never liked them. I wasn't super motivated to put in a ton of effort into these because I'm like, this is hours of work. I'm like, is this really gonna be what I need to do to prove to you that I know a skill? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So you will get these though. Unfortunately, I never agreed with them just on a moral basis. So I never gave them when I did interviews. But this is something that they may give you a packet. In fact, back when I was mentoring in 2021 time, 2021, 2022, I was mentoring data analysts, and a lot of the data analysts that I was mentoring would get data analyst jobs or get data analyst interviews, and they would get some take-home assignment. And I would be looking at a lot of these, and I'm like, this is really tough. Like, why do they need to go this in depth? I was like, this is like hours of work. I was like, but I guess if you have to do it, you have to do it. And here's how I would answer it. And just kind of like, then they would do all the work, but I would kind of mentor them and I would help them out. But these can be very easy or very tough. I've seen a wide range even for like mid-level roles, but they are essentially just some prompt. They're going to say, okay, here's an example. I forgot I wrote one down here. We provided this sales data set. So here's the sales data set. We want to know which region performed the best based on your criteria. Please provide the queries and the insights to back up your decision. Super simple. And they want you to go in and tell them why you looked at the data this way, why you inferred that this is more important than that, or you inferred that this data means this, or that this data is more important. Explain that to us. And so it's almost like you're doing data analysis with some, detailed summary of why you did what you did, as well as the queries that you wrote. And so these can be very simple to very complex, and they can last anywhere from like an hour to 5 hours. It's wild. Never agreed with them, but you can see them, which is why I'm telling you about them. All right, we've been in here for an hour. Here's what we're going to do in just a sec. We're going to go into why do companies interview with SQL, and just a little bit about it. And then we're going to look at some actual technical questions that you may get asked in a real interview. Excuse me. All right. So that was just a quick little water break because we're transitioning into the next one. So go ahead and grab your water or coffee or tea, beer. I don't care. I'm not judging. Wine. Do what you got to do. But let's take a quick break. I'm actually going to look at any see if there's any questions in here. Not knowing the primary key is kind of bad though. Yeah. So again, I'm not just mentioning it, but in that course I was talking about that I made, I talk about primary versus foreign keys. That's a question that comes up because that is a question that you can get asked. I just highlighted in this one a few of them that you'll get asked. But primary versus a foreign key, how do they work? Why do you need them? Those are, if you know, that's pretty good. Probably better than most. No, I don't have a graduate degree, Chowder. Love the name. I don't have a graduate degree. I have a bachelor's degree. I did an assignment before I got an interview. Oh man, they got you. They got you, my friend. All right, it's a big enough break. Let's jump into why do companies interview with SQL? The first thing is that companies really like it because it's in a lot of jobs. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, but a lot of companies use SQL or some type of SQL service. It may not be MySQL or Microsoft SQL Server, but it might be in the cloud or within some tool that they use and SQL is integrated into it. Very common. The other thing is that SQL is really easy to follow, really easy to do interviews with. And so, when they get in there, they can tell if you've used any SQL for any amount of time, they can tell if you know what you're talking about or not very quickly. And so it's pretty easy to follow in an interview very quickly if someone knows it or not. And then lastly, it's just a skill that every analyst should know. It's kind of one of those foundational skills that everyone should know. And so they're like, if this guy doesn't know it and we use it in our job, then that's not good because he maybe doesn't have as much experience as he's saying, or he doesn't know what he's doing. So, pretty interesting. Now, I'm going to show you real quick a few examples. And then we're going to go on to Analyst Builder for just a second. I'm going to show you a question because those are some resources to practice this type of stuff, and it's free. So I'm just going to show it to you. So let's look at this example interview question. Now, I'm telling you this one. I'm showing you this because these are real questions that you could get asked in an interview. It's very simple, right? And when I say simple, I don't mean like it's easy. but it's a simpler question than something more complex with more story, which we'll look at in a little bit. So let's write a query that returns a list of names who have not scheduled their tests yet. And then they give you the data on the right-hand side. So this is what you might get asked in the actual technical interview. And on the right-hand side over here, we have the data. We have this employee ID and the employee name and the test date and the employee ID. Now, I'm assuming these have like names for them, but what we can just look at over here is we can see, well, if this employee ID isn't down here with these test dates, that means they aren't in there. So 5 and 6 isn't down here in this one. So Amanda and Kelly, they haven't, scheduled their tests yet. So if we go to the next one, you can see that this is how we might write that. So we're selecting the employee name from a table where the employee ID is not in, and then this is from the test. And so this is our test over here. So 5 and 6 were not down here in the employee ID. So we used a subquery, and Amanda and Kelly is our output. And so that's just the kind of the question. That's how you might answer it. Now let's go on to the next one. And this one says, given the customer table and the products table, write a query to return the customer ID and name of the customer and the sum of their purchases. So now this one has a little bit more, right? We have a customer table up here, products table, and now we need to do some aggregation. So if we come over here, we can say the customer ID, we're joining these two tables first, taking the customer ID and the name, which we should be using tick marks here because name is a keyword in SQL. But then we're using an aggregation, sum of total, we're grouping on customer ID and name. This looks great. Here's our output. Perfect, right? This is what they're hoping you'll write. Something very simple, some just really simple, straightforward SQL code. No, they're not trying to trick you most of the time. I don't think I've ever seen anyone try to trick me before, or I've never tried to trick anyone. Usually they just want to test to see if you know what you're talking about. And yeah, I believe that's it for that. I have more to talk about, but I wanted to, so now if you want to practice this, so on Analyst Builder, you can come over here and there are free questions. So what these free questions are they are for that technical whiteboarding questions. So you can come up here to Media Addicts, and I'm on the wrong one. Oh, I think I was on the, I need to log in. Let me do that real quick. Don't look, nobody look. I'm just kidding. I'm just gotta sign in real quick. There we go. Uh-oh. That might be on my side. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's do this heart attack risk. I think my internet's doing something weird. That's not important. But these are technical questions that you can then practice right over here, and you can actually write it out. You can practice the question, and we have your solutions in here that you can go and look at the answer. And then if you don't get the answer right, I'll walk you through it myself. These are free questions. It's a free resource to actually come in here and practice, and it's awesome. So I highly recommend doing that. Now, let me come back here real quick. This is not a high quality stream, so just give me a sec. All right, this should be good, right? All right, I'm pretty sure that should do the trick. I'm going to talk a little bit more about different kinds of people you're going to interview with, but give me just a second. I want to make sure this, there we go. Oh, this looks great. So one of the things that we talked about earlier, and I'm actually going to go back there real quick, is the different types of interviews. You had screening call and the in-person. But really quick, I want to talk about the different types of in-person interviews, because this was very strange to me when I was first starting, because the first company I worked for was a small analytics company, a small healthcare analytics company. And my first interview was a screening call. Then my second interview was with my hiring manager, who's going to be my boss. And then the third interview was with the CTO of the company. Again, it was a small company, it's about 50 people. And so that was their process. And so when I was with the hiring manager, it was much more technical. He was asking a lot of, how do you know this? Do you know this? I got a technical interview. And then the next interview was nothing technical, but it was everything about my domain knowledge, my healthcare knowledge. And he was the CTO. And so he really talked to me a lot about what they do, their processes, if that's something I'm really, curious about or interested in or have done before. And so there are different levels or different stages. And so sometimes you're going to get an interview with somebody who's much higher up. And that can be a little bit intimidating. When I was interviewing for my manager of analytics role at my previous company, that's a Fortune 10 company. I got to interview with the VP of the IT department, as well as I got to interview with the CTO, who's the CTO of all of AmerisourceBergen. And the reason I did that was because my role had a lot of visibility upward. So we would create reports and dashboards for the IT department, which then went all the way up to the CTO level. And so I got to talk to him, and I got to, really kind of pick his brain, and he picked mine as well in the interview, with someone who was light years ahead of me in their career. And so, it's really interesting who you'll get to talk to. Now, for that first job at the small healthcare analytics company, there was no panel interviews. So I was just talking one-on-one each time. It's just your classic interview. But at other jobs, like when I was interviewing at AmerisourceBergen, which is the big company that I worked for, we did lots of panel interviews there. And I had a panel interview when I was first interviewing there. And a panel interview is multiple people. And they range, right? Because when I was on a hiring team, it was a data analyst, a product manager, and a project manager. And so, which with the product manager was my boss. And so, you'll get these panel interviews of a wide variety of people who really know about these positions. Like, these are people who you're going to be working with. These are people who are on adjacent teams to you, or maybe on your team, or they could be your boss. And so the panel interviews, I think, are a little bit more intimidating, if I'm being honest. I think they're a little bit more challenging because there's more dynamics than just one person. Now you're interviewing with 3 or 4 people. It's just, again, a little bit more intimidating. But all the main principles stay the same. You want to be friendly, outgoing, show that you know what you're talking about, answer well. But this time when someone asks you a question over here, you talk to them as well as a little bit of everybody, and then you switch to a different person. So it's just slightly different. But my biggest advice within each of those interviews is just to remain super positive, and that's their process. It's a weird process at some companies. Every company does interviewing different, and so just understand that it's a weird process. That's what I'll say. Now I'm going to take a break from talking. I'm going to keep talking, but I'm going to take a break from talking for a little bit. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'm going to answer some questions really quick. And there we go. Yeah, nobody look. Anthony, nobody look. I'm not some like professional streamer over here. I just like do this for you guys, or I do it for fun because I really like it. There we go. Yeah, my browser does want to restart. Sometimes my internet, my browser, they're all yelling at me, and they all have issues and whatnot. But we just ignore that. This is a good question. Ibuka said, "Can you get a remote job from Nigeria or a developing country?" The answer is yes. My team, we used to hire from all around the world, genuinely. And I don't have a ton of experience, but here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you the experience that I do have and what I have seen to be successful. But other people might have better advice. This is just my advice. There are companies, like when I was talking about earlier, we worked through a company called Accenture. We also worked through another company called TCS, which is Tata Consulting Services, or I think it's services. So consulting companies where I may have a smaller budget, and I can get, how do I say this? I had a team member in Lithuania. She was on my team when I was a manager. Lithuania is in Europe. It's a little bit of a smaller country, but it's a cheaper country. And so what we used to do, or what we did is to hire that exact same role, because she was our BI developer in America, it would cost like 120,000. Whereas we paid her about 50,000. But she, in Lithuania, 50,000 is a very good salary. So she was very happy because she was getting a really good salary for where she was living. We were really happy because it saved us money because we had a smaller budget for that role. And we all got along, we all could work together. And so if you can get into one of those consulting companies, work through one of those consulting services, I think that is a really good way to try to get work internationally. That's my opinion. It may not be perfect, but that's from my experience. I've worked with people from all over the world using consulting services. And so that's just my experience, but it may not be the best. Sometimes you might call it outsourcing, but when you're working through consulting at like a Fortune 10 company, you know, we had headquarters all around the world. We had a headquarter in Lithuania. We also had one in Mexico. So outsourcing would be, we're just trying to find super cheap labor. And that's not really how it was. They just happened to have exactly what we're looking for within our budget. So I guess, yeah, you know what? I'm going to semi take it back. It kind of is outsourcing, but that's what companies do. I'm just being transparent. And that's what I took on. When I was in there, we hired from all over the world, but we were trying to find the best quality person for our budget. And so, you know, that helps some people, it hurts other people. It is what it is, unfortunately. Is it necessary to learn statistics, and which is the best tool for visualizations? So statistics is definitely important. And I've talked about this on my channel. I'm like, I'm going to tell you the same thing. I still believe this to this day. I think statistics is important. I firmly believe statistics is an important part of data analytics, especially in certain types of companies like financial companies, healthcare companies. Those are the ones that I've found personally to be really more statistically heavy. But I think for most entry level, even mid-level positions in some cases, statistics is not as important. You kind of learn it hands-on as you get into it. So I don't think you have to study a ton of statistics in order to get your first job, but you'll need to kind of learn and bone up on it as you get those jobs. Would I consider to start an outsourcing company? No, probably not. Let's see. Alex, can you make Analyst Builder site free for 7 days like Coursera? Some of us are broke AF right now. I'm very sorry to hear you broke. We're looking into a way to do that. It's actually a little bit more complicated than because it's like we would have to temporarily take down things from our platform and then be able to put them back up. It's a little bit more difficult than it seems. That is something we actually are going to be trying to do in the future. But we do have a free portion of the website, and you can get big discount if you use the codes in the description. So I'm trying, but it does cost money for that platform. It's so I can't, unfortunately can't just make it free. Hendry said, "Hi Alex, thank you for your tutorials. They landed me my first tech job. Hey, congratulations, awesome job, super super awesome." I've never interviewed. This is from Gunhead Chick. It's an interesting name. I've never interviewed before, and I just finished the Google Data Analyst certificate. Should I start interviewing right now? The Google Data Analyst certificate is good. It has a lot of theory in it, not a lot of hands-on. I would, because I believe they have a capstone project, but I would build maybe 1 or 2 or 3 projects. I have free ones on my YouTube channel to get more hands-on work actually using the skills, because again, that certificate doesn't go super hands-on. But then after that, I would create a really good resume, and I would consider start trying to apply then. StatQuest is great. I know Josh Starmer personally, met him many times, met him at creator meetups and stuff. Actually, we went out to a dinner the other like 2 months ago. We went out to dinner with a few of us, and Josh is just a phenomenal guy. Couldn't recommend him enough. StatQuest, if you're looking for he does a lot of theoretical statistics, but StatQuest, great YouTube channel to learn stuff on, and Josh is a great guy. And he plays ukulele, which is cool. How long does it take to transition, this is from Praise, to transition from a junior level to an intermediate level? I would say usually about 2 years. Now, here's what happens. You could be learning and preparing to be a data analyst for years. You could do 3-4 years, but that experience is minimal compared to when you actually get hands-on experience. When you get your first job, you go from beginner to intermediate pretty quickly because you have to learn so much. It's very important that you do a good job because, you know, your job depends on it. So you go from intermediate to, or beginner to intermediate quite quickly. You become very good at it because you're using these things every day. You're getting hands-on experience with all these different tools and systems and databases, and it's exciting. So I would say max, I'd say 2 years. You shouldn't be getting junior jobs after 2 years, junior level jobs after 2 years. Let's see. I just skipped. Mesmet Oz. Thank you for being a member, by the way. Appreciate it. You're doing fantastic. If they ask us to tell us about your project, how should we answer? It's not my project. It's your project. You built it. I guided you, but you actually did the work. So if you use any of my projects, whether on my YouTube channel or in all the courses on Analyst Builder, those are your projects. You built them. So talk about them as if you did them and you built them. Just say, they're going to ask, do you have any experience using SQL? And if you've never had a job before, you don't have experience, right? But what you can say is, well, I've actually built several projects using SQL, and here's what I've done. Because I was really interested in, let's say, that COVID-19 project that I did on YouTube. I was really interested in just like how the COVID vaccines and how the COVID was going during those past 3 years. And so I collected all the data. I did some exploratory. I had to clean up the data first. So I did a lot of data cleaning. Then I had to do some exploratory data analysis. And I found some just really interesting things, like the percentage of increase year over year was this. And, you can give some information. That sounds way better than being like, well, I did this project. This guy named Alex the Analyst on YouTube, and it was pretty cool. Learned some stuff. He doesn't have hair, but he's still a pretty cool guy. That's not a good way to answer the question. So own it. That's your project, and talk about it as if that was like your project. Genuinely, I really want you to do that. Does experience matter when looking for a remote job? Yes. In fact, I think that most people should try not to start in a remote job. It's easier to apply because there's so many remote jobs out there. You can apply from anywhere in the world. But if you can get a local job, sometimes you even have a much better chance because you're not competing against as many people. You have a better chance of getting that job. And remote work, they tend to want you to already know it so they don't have to do much hands-on supervising, micromanaging. And so it's hard to get a remote job if you don't have experience. All right, let's go down here real quick. How do we so this is from Daddy Z. Hey, Daddy Z. Love the name. Hi, Mr. Alex. How to tackle questions about tools we are less familiar with. Say we mainly use SQL but to do initial analysis, but the test requires us to perform an analysis with Python. Well, then that just might be not a great fit, if I'm being honest. Because if you don't know Python and they're testing you in Python, that's not great. Because if they're testing you, that means they want you to know it. Again, I have a whole Python interview crash course if you want to learn Python, because you will. Some places do want you to know Python. I've taken SQL and Python technical interviews, and they're both important to know, but SQL more so. So I would just say that I would study SQL, but if you don't know the Python, then that's not going to be a good fit because you're going to fail that test for sure. But study for it if you can. But here's what I would say is, just in general though, if there's a skill you don't know, let's say you don't know Azure. Azure is a cloud platform. You've never used it before. Haven't really studied that much before. I would just bone up on it a little bit before your interview. If it's on the job description, just know what it is and find out some information on how it's used. Then when you get into the interview, they're going to ask you, hey, how much do you know about Azure? And you're like, well, I've never used it hands-on, but I understand how it works. And I think it'd be an amazing skill to, I think it's a really great tool. And I think I'd pick it up really quickly because I already know databases and I know data cleaning and I have done some similar stuff in maybe another tool. So you can kind of talk to it a little bit better than just saying, I've never used it. That doesn't sound very good. Dion, do you have any course promos for today? Yes, if you go in the description, you can do 50% off my interview crash courses, either MySQL or Python, and 25% off anything else. So yeah, I got some promotions for today if you are interested. I'm gonna answer one or two more questions. I'm gonna get into something else. T Crawford, hey, thanks for the donation. You didn't have to do that. I really appreciate it. How much SQL would a beginner use in entry level? Every company is different, but traditionally, you're going to be using joins, you're going to be using aggregations, you'll be using filtering, you'll be using group by. So, like again with aggregations. When I was in my first real data analyst job, which was at the healthcare analytics company, I was even going as far as like window functions, CTs, debugging stored procedures. I wasn't very good at it, but I started learning it. But I became quite good at it over time, which, you know, helps a lot with improving and other things like that. Now, that's the last question I'm going to answer for just a sec. You're welcome, Mehmet. I really appreciate it. Now, really quick, I'm gonna stop for just a second, and I want to talk about another just thing to consider that I think will be interesting to you. I joked about this is what I would wear to my interviews. I wasn't really joking. I was just kind of saying it. I don't know why I said I was joking, but I was just saying it. This is what I used to wear to my interviews. Really quick, I'm going to touch on what you should and should not wear as a man and a woman to an interview. And again, I've seen the gambit. I've seen everything. I've seen people dress very casually in like jeans and a t-shirt. I've seen people dress very professionally in like a full suit, like what I'm wearing. And here's what I will just say. First impressions do matter, especially if you're interviewing in person. If you're in an in-person interview, okay, let's just talk about a guy for a second. The least that I think any man should be interviewing, dress-wise, is he should at least have a button-down tucked-in shirt. Even with jeans, jeans, you know, but then some nice shoes, no sneakers, stuff like that. Call me traditional, but I don't think that's a good impression. Even better than that is just a button-down tucked-in shirt, but then with khakis or some gray pants. Okay, I'm not going to pull up examples. I'm just talking out loud. Even better than that is wear a tie. Even better, a suit jacket. I would just recommend. This may not be your style. You may not be, you know, you may look like me. You may not be the most attractive guy in the world, but you just try to present yourself well, right? Try to wear a suit and see how it goes. Sometimes, you know, sometimes I wouldn't wear a tie. I would just wear this if it was a little bit more casual, but I always tried to dress really nice. I always think that left a good impression or made a good first impression. So that's what I recommend. I don't recommend any flip-flops. Don't recommend ever wearing shorts. I don't recommend any t-shirts. Maybe if you're in like a super techie tech bro online interview and they're just like super cash and they're out in California, maybe wear a t-shirt. Maybe. But even then I would try to look somewhat, at least a button-down flannel. Like, come on. That's what I recommend. For women, I've interviewed lots of women. I'm not a woman myself, but I've interviewed lots of women. And I would say women in general tend to dress more professionally for interviews. I've only met maybe one that was a little more casual. But most women tend to wear suit pants or a nice dress. Or suit, pantsuit, is that what they call them? Pantsuit or a nice dress. Or a nice blouse and like a skirt or something like that. That's what I recommend. It just looks professional. Looks like you really tried and you care. Same for the guy. You just want to look like you're trying and you care. And so you want to look your best. You want to look presentable. For women, same thing. You know, no jeans and a t-shirt. No, I guess some women could wear like nice sandals, but no flip-flops or things like that. Just in general, I tend to side on more of the looking nicer, looking better. It looks, even if, you know, you look like a caveman and you just, you know, it happens. You're not the most attractive person in the world. A suit makes you look better. Okay? If I just wore a t-shirt around, I promise you, I don't look this good. I look good. Not really. But, you know, a t-shirt looks worse on me than something like a suit. I look better in a suit. So will you. Woman, man, pantsuit, regular suit, you will look better. You will look more professional. I promise you. So I do implore you that to look at that. If you don't own a suit jacket, go to Goodwill. That's where I got my first one. Or go to your local thrift store. That's where I got my first stuff that I was interviewing with when I was first interviewing. Your next step up is like Joseph A. Bank. You can get like 3 of these shirts for like $100. 3 of these suit jackets for like $100. They have like promos that go on. That's where I used to shop. And actually, I think this is Joseph A. Bank. This isn't Joseph A. Bank. This is actually the suit I wore to my wedding. I got married in this suit, but I wore this for interviews after I got married. This shirt is Joseph A. Bank. All right, this is a classy place. Yeah, exactly. And you guys get it. You guys, yeah. If you're a Silicon Valley startup, you wear just a gray t-shirt, black t-shirt. There you go. For virtual, and this is something that last thing I'm going to talk about actually, and we're doing perfect on time. We'll get some Q&A at the end. Last thing I want to talk about is interviewing online versus interviewing in person. Because if you remember, we were talking about quote unquote in-person interviews, which can be online versus in person, like actually sitting in front of them. There's not a ton of difference, but here's what I will say. Back during the pandemic, I applied for different jobs. I got interviews at different jobs. And I was on a hiring team still during that pandemic couple of years when that was going on. And when you're interviewing online, make sure to mute yourself if you have to fart, or if, you know, your dog comes and starts like barking or something, just mute yourself. It's happened and it's very embarrassing and I feel bad. They feel bad. I was the one farting. It was another person, but it happens. It's embarrassing and you feel bad for them. And so just something to consider. I personally, now what I'm about to do is going to blow your mind. I'm not actually wearing a full suit. I'm wearing joggers with this. You don't need, when you're online, you don't need a full suit. You just need the suit jacket. All right. There's a little tip there. I'm not wearing a full suit right now. I'm just wearing the upper half. You don't, if I was interviewing right now, what are you going to know? How would you know? Okay, so you don't need to go out and buy a full suit. Just buy a suit jacket or buy a blazer, right? So just look nice from this part up and don't stand up during your interview. All right? Don't stand up. Virtual interview, coat and tie top, boxer shorts on the bottom. It works as long as it works. All right. Mike Jones said he knew it. He called it. He knew this years ago. He knew I was just wearing joggers. Let me see what kind of joggers I'm wearing. They're gray. They're gray. They look nice. A little tie right here. There we go. Pretty good. All right. A little snap that. Bam. I could go out with this. Yeah. Yeah, we knew it. We all knew it. And so, you know, just take that into consideration. Look nice. Just put in a little extra effort with what you're wearing. But interviewing online, make sure you have a good camera. I don't recommend using the one that's on your actual desktop. Usually it's like 720p, doesn't have great audio or doesn't have great image. You can pick up, this is the same one I picked up 8 years ago. Logitech. Let me see if it'll autofocus. Yeah, Logitech HD 1080p. I still use this for any conferencing I do. For my consulting clients, or even when I do YouTube sometimes. I bought that 8 years ago. It looks 10 times better than this thing, and it cost me, I think, $60. I think they're now like 90. So they're a little bit more expensive, but you're going to be using it in your job. You'll be using a webcam all the time if you're remote. So just invest 80 bucks into a half decent one. Logitech's solid. Logitech can go up all the way up to like 200 bucks. You don't need those. But that one cost me like 60 bucks. So highly recommend getting a good one because you'll use it a lot. And so there are just some small differences, right? There are differences between interviewing on like a Zoom call or interviewing in person. In person, you can't wear jogger shorts. Don't recommend it, but online, go for it. I don't care. So with all that being said, that is our interview masterclass. That was over an hour and a half. For the last 15, 20 minutes, I'm just going to be answering your questions. And if you haven't already, in the description, I have discount codes or 50% off codes for the SQL interview course and the Python interview course on Analyst Builder. Those are courses that I created that go really in depth into exactly what you need to know for interviewing. And if you just want to buy anything else, there's 25% off code in there too. So there we go. All right, I'm looking at questions now. We're diving into some questions. This isn't a question, but it says, thank you, Alex, love you. I love you too. Adiodu 2009, I love you as well. You're awesome too. True. Let's see. Yes, totally don't need. Mandy agrees. You don't need it. You don't need pants. Pants are for chumps. I actually don't even need these joggers, but for visual purposes, I wasn't going to stand up wearing my boxers. That would have been unfortunate. Let's see. Apurva asked, Alex, can you please tell me what should I be prepared with before or during my bachelor program in data science? Depends on what your program has, man. If they're going to be teaching a lot of Python or R, I would be boning up on whatever they're going to be teaching, because whatever they're going to teach, they're going to go light speed. They're going to expect you to already know it, right? So they're going to be teaching, let's say, R statistics with ggplot and all these different things. Then I would be boning up on R immediately, because once you get into that program, they're going to expect a certain level, and then they're going to go beyond that. And if you don't already know it, you're going to get stuck. So whether it's Python, SQL, whatever, really hone in on that. Angelina Belozorova. Love that name. Awesome name. I would like to ask you a question. How many projects would be enough? If there are machine learning models, can it be considered a success to get hired for a new entry-level position? Here's what I'll say to this. I recommend, if you're just starting out, 3 is like the minimum I would make. At least a SQL project and maybe some Tableau projects. At minimum, I highly recommend having about 7. Because then you can have about 3 SQL projects, maybe a couple in maybe Python if you want to do Python, but you could have them all in SQL for all I care. You 3 SQL ones, and then maybe like 4 Tableau ones, or whatever combination. But you need a variety. And these projects are twofold. You don't just create a project to get the interview. You talk about them in the interview as well. So what's going to happen is you're going to put these projects on your resume as well as on a portfolio website, which, I have YouTube videos for those. You're going to do them, but then when you get into the interview, they're going to ask you, and maybe you don't have experience using SQL. They're going to ask you, what experience do you have using SQL? You're going to say, well, I built these projects that I was just really passionate about in this and this, and here's how I got the data, and here's how I transformed the data, and here's what I found. And here's what I used within SQL. I was using window functions and joins and all these different things. And that's a much, much, much better answer than, I listened to Alex the Analyst on YouTube, and I've taken watched some of his YouTube videos. My videos are great, but applying it and actually knowing what what you were doing is even better. It sounds really good too. Philip Alf said, hi, Gopi. Not sure what that means. What's Gopi mean? I hope that's an endearing term. But it says, I am starting up my own YouTube channel too. Do it, man. Shoot me a link on LinkedIn. I'll go follow you. All right, let me see. Oh, I skipped a bunch. Oh, boy. Oh boy, what have I done? Oh, I found it. Okay. It happens every live stream I do. I do apologize. Frederick Morty asks, "Hi Alex, I have a scholarship interview coming up for college. Do you think the questions will be technical like these or just something easy?" I don't know what the scholarship is for, but I don't anticipate them being very technical unless it's maybe for like a graduate or PhD program. I don't anticipate it being super technical, but listen, I'm just some random guy. I don't know what program you're interviewing for. Um, there you go. Let's see. Mehmet Oz said, "You're the man," with a laughy crying emoji. I don't know if that means I actually am the man or if I'm not the man. I can't tell. Buvana said, "Hi Alex, how are you? I'm doing great. I'm wearing half a suit. I'm live streaming. I'm just chilling, man. This is living the dream." Altria said, "Any recommendation for good university with data science master's program?" No, I don't have any recommendation. I'm on the fence about higher education past a bachelor's degree anyway. Because industry experience is just way more valuable than a master's degree right now. Way more valuable. In fact, I will not be going. I was thinking about going and getting my master's degree. Even if I didn't have my YouTube channel, I didn't have anything. If I just rose up the ranks as I was doing, never created a YouTube channel, I don't think I would need a master's degree. I don't think it's necessary. My experience was by far the most valuable thing that I had in my toolkit. Infinite Dro, what's going on, man? Been a while. Hey Alex, I received a message on LinkedIn from a CFO and was wondering what are some things that I should expect. What should you expect? Is this like a job? Like he messaged you for a job? I know you. I kind of know a little bit about your background. If it is for a job, then I would expect to talk with him about the job. I need more information. Give me some more information. If I see it down below, I'll give you a better answer. Oh boy, Albert Bellamy made it. All right, time to go, guys. No, I'm just kidding. What's going on, Albert? Thanks for joining. Appreciate it, man. Let's see. Pox said, "Hello, Mister. I'm from Sudan. I need a motivation sentence to start my journey as a data analyst." All right, here's my best go at being a motivational speaker. What's your name? Pox. I'm gonna call you Pox because that's your YouTube name. Pox, you can do it. I know you can. You're technical, you're smart, you're handsome. I'm assuming you're a man. And you can do it. Don't let anything stop you. The only thing that's limiting you is you. You believe and you work hard, you can achieve. That's my best motivational speech. But for real, don't let anything stop you. If you want to do it, go after it. Work hard for it. Even if for whatever reason that doesn't pan out, all your hard work that you're putting in, something else will come along. Other doors open when you work hard. May not be the door that you were hoping for, but other doors will open. I firmly believe that. Always put in the hard work. This is an interesting question. It says, this is from Utkarsh Mishra. What is the scope of data analytics in freelancing? Now, just real quick, consulting and freelancing, here's what I kind of usually make the like delineator of this. Consulting is more like high level, not usually as hands-on work. It's more like, here's how to do it. Here's what I recommend. I'm consulting you. I'm giving you my knowledge and I'm just advising. Whereas freelancing is typically the hands-on work where they give you a job, you go and you physically write code or you build something for them. Usually that's how I delineate it, but there can be some overlap, some crisscross depending. But the scope of data analytics and freelancing, I've seen a lot of things. I've seen people who just build dashboards. I've seen people who, go in and do like analytics and they have experience in healthcare and they need someone who has healthcare analytics experience to build, a data pipeline, which they would work with like a data engineer, database developer or something. and you go in there and you help explain their data to them. So you have expertise in an area and you go and do that. Or they just need someone who's really good at SQL or really good at a certain skill, and you have that skill. Let's see. Akshay said, how to develop domain knowledge as an entry-level data analyst for any specific industry. I recommend getting a job in a domain, right? I knew healthcare from college, but then when I was out of it, I learned all the data, all the domain knowledge I know from actually working in the industries from my jobs, about claims data and CPT codes and diagnosis codes and blind studies and all these different things I learned on the job. And so you don't just learn it by looking at books. You learn it from hands-on experience. And so that's what I'd recommend. All Zones channel. I have 5 years of experience in the banking sector. If I upskill or take courses of data analytics, will I consider like a fresher or experienced? Now, it depends on what you're doing in the banking, but I have seen a lot of people go straight into mid-level. When I was mentoring, I worked with a lot of people who were, and I'm just going to do these specifically, but there were a lot of others, but people who were teachers, people who were healthcare workers, who were nurses, doctors, pharmacists. These are all people who I used to had hands-on mentoring with, or one-on-one mentoring with. And most of them got jobs directly into the mid-level because they had experience in an industry, and that domain knowledge that you have is actually really valuable. And so I worked with one teacher who started at like this tech startup, and they needed a teacher who could like help them with their product and their data side of their stuff. And so she got a job going straight mid-level. And I worked with a pharmacist who went straight almost to senior level. It was like mid-level, and then he got promoted to a senior like the year after he got that first job. And so the domain knowledge can be very valuable. And so if you combine the skills with the knowledge, you usually can start at mid-level. Let me go down. Stephen Akellum said, what are some necessary things I need to know before I take a certification course on data analysis? I don't know what certification course you're taking, but most certifications aren't useful. The only ones I recommend are Tableau's data analyst certification, Azure, and AWS's data analyst certification. Those are the only ones I recommend. You don't need the CompTIA ones or any of these other ones. They aren't useful. They won't get you a job. But what I would do is I would take my free Data Analyst Bootcamp. It's free. It's better than most paid resources out there in the world. And, I give a free certification at the end of that one, the Data Analyst Bootcamp certification, and it's free. So if you're looking for a certification, that one is better than most other certifications. It is better. I promise you. The more I learn about the certifications in the data analyst, data science, and data engineering industry, the more I'm like, man, you don't need them. You don't need them. And then the step up from that is like going on to Analyst Builder and going more in depth into these skills. That is like the next level. And so not everyone's there or needs it, but everyone should start with that Data Analyst Bootcamp on my YouTube. It's free. It's really great. Angeline, I already answered your question. Jorge Solares. Hi, Alex. How do you discuss and talk about job positions asking 3 to 5 years of data analyst experience, degree in data science, etc., when transitioning into the field from another career? Sometimes they're going to really take that seriously. They're like, you don't have 3 years experience, we can't hire you. But some other jobs are going to be more flexible. I recommend applying for those jobs, even if you don't have that much experience, because sometimes they'll look at your domain knowledge or your skills that you have, and you're like, okay, doesn't have as much experience, but let's give them an interview and give them a shot. So I would just say, I know you're looking for someone with a lot of experience, but I have a lot of experience in this domain. I know everything there is to know about, marketing analytics. But I just don't have a marketing analytics position. But here's what I did in marketing. Did this and this and this, and here's how we use the data. And it would be really transferable to a position like this. That is experience. Michael Brown says, what should you say when asked about salary expectations? I've heard it's best if the recruiter tells you what the company's expectations are before you provide yours. This is one of the trickiest pieces about interviewing. It's super, super tricky. I never got a perfect process down. And so usually, and this is what I did, and I don't even know if this is great. Usually I just went higher than I thought I needed to go. And then if I was willing to go down, it looked good to the company. Is that perfect? No, but I'll give you an example. When I went from my healthcare data analytics company, a small company, I was making $63,000. But when they asked me how much I was expecting, I said $85,000. I would have been fine with $75,000, $70,000, $65,000, because at the time it wasn't about the money. It was more about getting out of that job because the company was kind of going under, it seemed. They're actually still in business, funny enough. But things weren't going well at that company with their finances, and I was worried that they were going to go under. So that's why I was applying to other jobs. Excuse me, I'm gonna itch my nose a little bit. We'll just all have to deal with it together. I apologize. So I would just say a little bit higher than you expect. If you're making 75,000, you want 100, say 115. It's just my basic rule of thumb. Like 15 to 25% higher than you are hoping for, so that when they come back with you, oh, okay, let's take that example. You're making 75, you want 100,000. You say 120, like, oh, I'm hoping for 120. Like that's my salary expectation. They're like, oh, well, our range is actually 95 to 110. Would you be willing to do that? And you say, yes, I'd be willing to go within that range. And then you're getting more. Now, if they come back and they're like, well, our salary range was 200 to 250, I don't think that's ever happened. Nor is you should be doing some research on this company, on their salary ranges. You can go on lots of companies like Glassdoor and other ones and kind of get some estimate of how much you should be expecting for your area, for your level of expertise, etc. And then just go a little bit above that. That's the best answer I got. Hi, Alex. What about business? Oh, this is from Or Lahav. What about business/statistic question? What is the best way to prepare for them? If you know that job has statistics that's going to be involved, I would be researching those types of statistics, whether it's linear regression or, there's so many. So you can kind of know what a company might use, and maybe they even talk about that in the actual job description. So then just research those things, come prepared. For the business side of things, again, that's more research. You can go onto their website, you can ask around, you can message someone at the company, and you can find out a lot about a company. You can find out a lot. And so just both of those are just research, asking around, researching, because you're not fully gonna know, right? You won't fully know the answer unless you have domain experience in that already. Kamal B, would PMP help to get a data analyst job? Is project manager position? I've heard PMP, but now I'm blanking on what that is. Is that like a project manager? I don't know. Shaif Ahmad, how can I start freelancing in data analytics with no prior experience? Any outline on how to get clients who pay decently? It's pretty tough if you have no experience, but you can be done. I've had people message me just randomly who are like, hey, I didn't have any experience, started going on Upwork and Fiverr and applying for jobs, and they just undercut other people. Like if the job was probably worth $100 for like a couple hours of work, they'd bid like $25, just to get some experience. And then they started charging more later. So I never went through that stuff, so it's hard for me I never did the freelancing. I mostly do consulting, so I don't have a ton of experience, but people who message me, it's kind of usually the things that they would say. All right, let me scroll down. Nash Naik said, hey Alex, hey, how's it going? Oh, thanks for the donation, Mr. Number 6. Says, loving the 60s suited jazz musician look. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Funny enough, I flew down to Dallas last Thursday to my father-in-law. He's a musician, and so I just went and played some gigs with him. And I'll share some stuff on Instagram. I usually, Instagram is where I share like funny life videos. But I'll share some videos and stuff on there at some point of me singing or playing. If I can find, because he records all of his stuff for his website. And so maybe I'll post something on there. Can I connect via LinkedIn? Vince, yes, you can. Please connect with me. Shoot me a message so I know who you are. Let's see. I skipped down a bunch and now I'm gonna have to go back up. Yeah, I hate when it does that. YouTube does this where it skips all the way down to the latest comment, and I'm like 200 comments back. It takes forever, and I don't like that. Yes, you are better than a paid course. That is no joke. I've taken paid courses, a lot of paid courses in my day. And the YouTube bootcamp that I've created over the past 4.5 years of all the content that I made, it's like 70 videos, is better than a lot of paid courses. Again, just trying to make it accessible to everyone around the world. If you can afford it or if you can't afford it, it is free for you. And I really take a lot of pride in that because when I was first starting out, I didn't have much money. I had like $500 to my name when I got married to my wife. Didn't have much money. I just I had to work some extra jobs. I took this job on as his friend from my church. He set up wedding venues. He would set them up and he would tear them down, but he only did a certain part of it. He would take these like glass vases, he'd fill them up with water and put flowers in them. Like that was his thing. And he knew I was struggling financially. And so his name was Miguel. Yeah. Or maybe, yeah, I think it was Miguel. There's one of my other friends I did it with too. But anyways, but he got me some other gigs, and so I worked a little extra on the side of my job so that I can make some money in order to buy some courses. And so I'm hoping that all these free resources that I've made over the past almost 4.5 years now can help people who maybe not have been able to afford it before. Mandy Wu, Alex is the man, inspiring data analyst since January of 2020. It's true. That's when I started my channel. Okay, Infinite Draw. I found his message. He said, I applied for an analyst position that was posted by a recruiter a couple of hours after applying. They sent me a message if I'm still interested in the job and if I'm willing to relocate. Say, heck yeah, man. I'll go anywhere you want. That's what I'd say, if you're willing to relocate. But yeah, it seems like they're motivated. If you applied and they responded quick, I would follow up with them if they haven't responded in a couple days or a week and just see if they're, I'd follow up very, cordially. There's a button here. Oh. Anyway, I just clicked the random button and now I don't know how to get out of this button. Oh, what have I done? Oh, guys, I'm ruining things over here. I clicked a button that I'd never clicked before. It minimized my chat, and now the chat has to pop back up. So give it a second. I'm not a professional here. All right, I'm just some random guy on the internet. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if anyone noticed. When I was transitioning from certain things, I don't use buttons. I just click out of it, and you guys get to see my computer, which I think is funny. Anyways, all right, we got about, oh, geez. That's 2 hours. How is 2 hours already up? I feel like I've been talking for like an hour. But let me go down. Let me go down to the bottom. PMP certification is an internationally recognized project management cert. Honestly, with PMP being data analyst is a bit overqualified. Oh, okay. Project manager certification. I'm not super familiar with that. Lavanya said, hi, Alex. How can I clear my doubts regarding your projects? Well, first off, my projects are perfect. No, I'm just kidding. If you're having any issues with the projects, join the Alex the Analyst Discord. There's a Discord where people come in and they ask questions and they post comments or concerns, their resume. It's a great community to ask questions. How long does the promo last? Probably until maybe like Friday, or Thursday or Friday. But if you can't get in that time, just shoot me a message. I'll try to help you out. But if you guys are just joining, the promo that he's talking about, in the description, we talked about all these data analyst stuff. For interviewing, I have 2 courses on data analytics interviews, for SQL, one for Python. And so those are 50% off today, which makes them pretty quite affordable. And so there's a 50% off code down below as well as the link. And those are just for you if you want it. You don't have to do it if you don't need it. It's okay. I won't be mad, I promise. It's just I have them. If you want to, go for it. And also check out Analyst Builder. It's one of the best platforms for data analysts in the world, even right now. It is one of the best. And we're adding new features. I'm adding my next course I'll be adding in like a few weeks is cloud platforms for using, or what's the title of it? But I'm going to be teaching you all you need to know about AWS and Azure, hands-on learning, creating data pipelines, analyzing data. So you will get hands-on experience using those tools. And I'm really excited about that one. And then after that, I'm making a course on AI, how to use the APIs, how to use things like ChatGPT for data analysis, how I use it, all in a bunch of other tools. And so that platform is just, I can't say enough good things about it. It's the best platform in the world for data analysts. But back to the questions. Just giving myself shout outs now. It's just the best. I can't stop talking about it. It's great. Vince said, where can I find the link for the Discord? Just Google Alex the Analyst Discord. It'll come up. You can join it. What is my LinkedIn? I'm Alex Freeberg. Freberg. That's my last name. I'm almost done with your boot camp. When I'm done, what do you think should be the next step to being a data analyst as a fresher? If you finish that data analyst boot camp, that's on my YouTube channel, completely free, genuinely, you can probably start applying. I'm not just being facetious. I'm not just tooting my own horn here. I knew a fifth of what's in that boot camp, maybe a fourth. I knew 25% of what was in that boot camp, and that got me to where I am now. If you already know the Python, Pandas, Tableau, Power BI, Excel, SQL, that is not easy to learn. That takes a long time. And so that's why that boot camp is there, just so that people can learn those skills for free. You should have projects. You should have a portfolio website, because that's all part of the boot camp. You should be starting to apply for jobs. Reach out to recruiters, talk to consulting companies, reach out to your mom, see if she needs some data analysis. I mean, go for it, for real. All right, guys. My 2 hours is up. Thank you guys so much for joining. I really, really, really appreciate you guys joining. There was a lot of people. We had, over 500 people at some point joining in, listening in. We covered all things data analytics interviews. And if you want to, if you missed some of it, go back and watch it. But we covered so many things. It was a really good interview. I don't know if you caught it, but under this, down below, I'm not wearing a bottom of a suit. So if you're curious as to what I am wearing, no, it's nothing weird. But you can go back and you can watch the video, or you can watch the live stream back again. I don't know when it was there, but I'm not wearing a full suit here. Wink, wink. Nod, nod, nudge, nudge. No, it's totally PG, I promise. But I had a blast. A lot of great questions. A lot of people from around the world. We have people from Argentina, Venezuela, Ghana, Europe, all over Europe, US, Canada. I love it. I love you guys. I know some of it, it's like middle of the nights for some of you guys. You guys still made it. And so that really warms my heart. I am very appreciative of you guys. I'm super happy that I get to do this and I get to spend time with you guys. It really makes my whole week. Like I end these live streams very happy because I get to, connect with you guys and talk with you guys, and it's just a lot of fun. And so thank you guys so much for joining. I need to click a button over here, don't I? Oh boy, how long have I been looking like this? I'm looking like I just got done with a 2-hour live stream. I did. So I'm going to stop the stream now, but thank you guys. I appreciate you. I care about you. Follow me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel. All of it's appreciated. All of it's appreciated. So with that being said, enjoy your Tuesday. And I will see you guys in the next video, live stream. Maybe you'll follow me somewhere and you'll see me in person and stalk me. I hope that doesn't happen. That'd be weird. I'll call the police. Don't do that. All right, I'm rambling now. I'm actually going to go. But take it easy. Take care. Happy Tuesday. I love you. I'll tell my wife I said that, but I do. I love you. And